get serious here.
It's almost showtime.
3, 2, 1. It's showtime.
It's showtime!
And now, broadcasting from the Valley Truck Commander studio at PayneAutoGroup.com, this is News Talk 710 KURV, and this is The Drive Home, an interactive show where you call in with your comments and questions. Call in now at 1-800-580-8255. That's 1-800-580-TALK. Buckle up. The second hour of The Drive Home on News Talk 710 KURV begins now.
It is 5:09 on 710 KURV. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Roxanne Garcia along with Davis Rankin, and this is The Drive Home on 710 KURV. So I'm pretty sure we spoke about minimum wage a few weeks back when these protests went on, and I think over 200 cities across the country where people were walking out of McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, all these fast food places, right?
It was a campaign
Walking
put together
out,
by SEIU,
They
I
were
think.
walking out during work hours, and they were protesting and demanding
Can't touch me.
$15 an hour to flip burgers, right? So I remember that was a big topic back when that happened. Well, earlier this
You can work a better
afternoon...
sneer into your voice.
Not at all. I'm just saying I don't think it's fair for somebody who's put a lot of time and effort into a job. I mean, I don't think it's fair. Anyway, so earlier this afternoon, we got headline that Los Angeles has decided to do that.
The city
LA,
commission, city council?
yes, the city council votes to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next 5 years. So, of course, with us to talk about this is Steve Parkhurst. He is a political consultant. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for saying yes on such short notice. I tweeted him.
Tweet.
I tweeted him, and right away we got a response. So thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. It's good to be with you guys again.
Thank you. So my question, first of all, is why do you think LA did this, and what's the outcome going to be?
Well, the outcome is probably that they'll raise the minimum wage. And I was listening offline to your top of the hour news break, and I think there was somebody from the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce who said a lot of people just lost their jobs and they don't even know it yet. And I agree with that sentiment. And the purpose of this is just, we talked about it about 6 or 7 weeks ago, where this is kind of the politics of good intentions. This is kind of a feel-good social experiment, and for the lack of a better phrase, it's actually the social experiment of the year right now. And they're just trying to push this through because frankly, the left really doesn't have much else to run on these days, and so they're fighting this inequality debate and this raise the minimum wage debate. And, this is just more evidence of all of that. And frankly, you had a 14-1 vote on the LA City Council, and it's a city that's hardcore supported by Democrats, run by Democrats. So that's how it happened.
Do you think other cities are going to catch on? First, we had Seattle do this, and then I've also read that it didn't. A lot of mom and pop stores had to close down because of this. Now LA's doing it. Do you think like New York, Atlanta?
Did they exempt people in Seattle? Don't they typically exempt the smallest businesses from this? I don't know.
Yeah, that I'm not familiar with. There's an interesting story. San Francisco raised their minimum wage to $15, and if you Google this, you can find the story. It's a really interesting story, though, of a guy who owns a comic book store in San Francisco. He only employs one person, and he was a progressive leftist, supported the minimum wage hike, supported all the people who imposed it. And then he started to do the math after it was voted on, and he realized it was going to cost too much. It was going to put him out of business. So he was fortunate enough to kind of be entrepreneurial, come up with an idea where he created a membership plan for his store, and he got enough people for the first year to go ahead and do this annual membership plan for like $240 to join a comic book store. I can't explain that, but I guess people in San Francisco can. But I mean, that's what some people like that have had to. So I mean, no. To answer your question, he didn't get an exemption. I mean, here he is. He only employs one person, and so when some of the businesses, they'll be told, well, you can just reduce your workforce, which is obviously that's a terrible solution.
Yeah, people lose their jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy couldn't reduce his workforce. I mean, he employed one guy.
Yeah.
So,
and that was so too expensive for him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there should be, especially in a case like that, there should be, and maybe some cities will create an exemption, but I haven't heard of this yet. But there should be something along the lines of like a free market contract to say, look, I'm an independent guy. I employ one person. There ought to be a way for me to reach a contract with somebody that, hey, maybe I can find a college student that's willing to do this job for $10 an hour, and that should be okay. The law shouldn't require me to pay, somebody $15 an hour or some of these other cities that are going even crazier. I think New York is pushing for a $20 minimum wage right now.
What?
And that's a state thing being pushed by Governor Cuomo there. Again, another leftist, another state controlled by Democrats.
Well, Cuomo's going to fixing there's speculation that he has bigger fish to fry.
What about our raises? Are we going to get raises here that have worked and went through 4 years of college, got their degree? Are we going to get raises as well, or is it just these people that work at minimum wage jobs? I know you don't know. I know you don't know the answer to that question, Steve. I'm just saying. I'm not hating, Davis. Sorry, Steve.
So you're in the political consulting business. My understanding is that the Democrats plan, however they decide, that maybe they all meet somewhere and make this decision, or that they are going to use the minimum wage increase as a campaign issue. That'll be a big campaign issue to walk side by side with inequities or inequality in pay rates around the country. What's the Republican response other than, get another job or work harder or to go to law school? Or
that's not the Republicans' response.
That's a friend of mine said, if the poor don't like being poor, they should go to law school. But that usually gets bigger laugh. No, I'm snarky but serious. It seems to me the Republicans don't have an adequate response to people who go, yeah, I'd like to get more money. But that's as far as they think about it, right? They don't think about anything else.
Yeah, there's not one unified Republican response, and frankly, it really should be about economic growth. It should be about how do you grow the pie. And, this goes back to, I just mentioned earlier that the city council in Los Angeles voted for this minimum wage hike 14-1. I would love to go through the minutes of the LA City Council and find out when was the last time they talked about reducing taxes on anybody. When was the last time that they talked about tax relief for either business owners or potential business owners to get started and to start businesses so that they can employ more people. And frankly, that's making the pie bigger. And the late Jack Kemp, Republican, ran for president, was a congressman from New York, had a concept that he advocated for probably 30, 40 years, enterprise zones, where he talked about you can go into really depressed areas, you can lower the tax rates, you can lower the regulations, you can make minimum wage less for maybe teenagers so that you start to get them into work and let the teenagers start to develop work habits. And that's, frankly, a message that we could bring back and we should bring back. And maybe you call them something. The mayor of San Diego has a concept called economic opportunity districts. And maybe that's the way we need to go, is call them economic opportunity districts. And it's not taking an entire city and lumping it into this, but just blighted areas where, perhaps inner cities. If we did something like this in even just a small portion of Baltimore where they just had these riots, you start to change a culture and you start to change a neighborhood in an area, and that's a better Republican response, right? Grow the Republican pie, put more people to work. Frankly, it's a better solution to have a lot more people earning minimum wage than raising the wage for a few and then firing a whole bunch of other people and putting a lot more people into the unemployment lines.
I'm trying to figure out, sorry, Davis, people, it sounds fine, and oh my word, $15 an hour, heck yeah, I mean, sign me up for that. But do they not understand that everything is going to go up, especially in California? The cost of living there is crazy. I was just there.
You anticipated my question.
Everything is going to go up.
They've got a drought. Most of what America eats, I'm told, 90% of what we eat is grown in California.
Yeah,
the
San Joaquin Valley used to be the breadbasket of the world. I have family there.
But in terms of the percent of fruits and vegetables and nuts that we eat, most of them come from California. The drought is going to make them either unavailable or much more expensive. And I keep reading that they have a debt problem in the legislature. I don't know where the truth lies on this. Legislatures like the city council can do heedless things, foolish things. Do you know do you have any clients out there?
We do, and we have. Frankly, what it's going to come down to. This seemed to be more where your question was headed. And if it's not, please redirect me. But you talk about the fact that yes, minimum wage would go up, and what people don't understand is that you're really hurting the same people that you're trying to help in this sense. And because think about when McDonald's raises their prices to cover the new $15 minimum wage, well, who is the majority of McDonald's customers? It's people who are low wage, and any kind of increase, any dollar increase on any one of those meals at McDonald's is going to hurt the working family who is struggling and who relies on McDonald's to provide meals. And so They just don't realize it. Again, it's politics of good intentions. It's good soundbite. It plays well at the very beginning, and then they don't worry about it. I mean, we can use the example of Obamacare, where that was passed 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago now, and we're still, there's still very few positives from it, and it's mostly negatives, and there's still stuff that we haven't figured out that's bad about it that's coming around the bend because they keep pushing back these delays and these sign-up periods and all this stuff. And so, again, this is something that it looked real good at the beginning, but it's going to be a dreadful result for the average working family. I
was talking to a businessman the other day about the local economy. He said one of the things he believes has sucked cash out of the economy is Obamacare, the rising cost of insurance / Obamacare. There's no way to quantify that, is there? I mean, that's anecdotal. I guess if you did survey research and reported back like the conference board or something, you might have a case to make. It would make sense to me that if somebody's expenses went up a lot and they were concerned about it going up even more, they would pull back. But that doesn't mean it's true.
Right, and the Obamacare numbers are really, really shady still at this point. They're still counting these sign-ups, and the sign-up is basically like when Roxanne looks at the Macy's website and she picks out 25 different pairs of shoes, and then she gets the shopping cart, and before she buys the 25 pairs of shoes, she clicks the browser and doesn't actually buy anything. Well, they count her as a sign-up. They signed her up for 25 pairs of shoes, but she didn't actually make the purchase of those shoes. Right. So that's what's happening with a lot of Obamacare. They keep touting the sign-ups, but they're not touting how many people are paying their premiums. And then most of these companies, they're when you start paying your premiums into your new healthcare system or healthcare plan, you can default after 60 days. So there's some people who they'll stop paying, like let's say at the end of March, and it's still the end of May, and they're still being counted even though they haven't paid for 2 months, and they still haven't been kicked off their plans because there's a 60-day grace period.
This is like, I'm not criticizing, I'm saying this is like anecdotal. How do you make a coherent message in the middle of a political campaign as opposed to what we're used to here on the radio, which is anecdotal stuff? This guy says that, this guy says this. How do you do that?
Well, yeah, it's tough. And typically you have about 7 seconds to reach the average voter. And so you've got to be real. The best way is to get either big media, which is TV, radio appearances, or doing what we try to get all of our candidates to do, which is go door to door and just talk to people and stand there, answer their questions, and tell them one-on-one. And hopefully, what that does is that kind of spreads like a virus, so to speak. You talk to one neighbor, they talk to 5 of their neighbors, and they talk to their people, their friends at church, and stuff like that. And so that's really the only way to do it, because you're not going to get clearly we're not getting the truth, especially on the major media outlets. And so these numbers, and again, I listen to your news there at the top of the hour. Everything is about flooding, the Waco shooting, and the LA minimum wage. And it's like, well, okay, where do you squeeze in Obamacare numbers, and where do you squeeze in free market ideas? It's tough. Your news break there was like 7 or 8 minutes. And there were very few topics covered, and that's not your fault. It's just the way it is.
Here's a question. It seems to me that the Republicans do not have a coherent message like the Democrats do. When the Democrats talk or liberals talk about wage inequality, people can't get ahead. We need to raise the minimum wage.
It's the way they market. Sorry.
No, but I agree with you. They're whether they meet somewhere or all have an internet chain. I'm astounded. I keep going back again to, and I watch Morning Joe most every morning. And when unemployment figures, viewer. Yeah, well, they need the help. Someone's got to watch them. So when they report the employment numbers, they always have someone from CNBC, which seems to be doing fine, and they go, "Oh, this is good. Unemployment's down." Then, like in the next breath, they're going, "But a lot of people aren't. They've dropped out, and they're not even looking for work." Well, if that's true, then that's not an accurate figure. I mean, common sense says that's not an accurate figure, but I do not hear anybody on the right saying essentially that the method for reporting this just stinks and it's not accurate. They were probably fudging it back when George W. Bush was there too, because if the method was wrong now, it's wrong then. And at least that would muddy, in some people's minds, the accuracy of everything's going great. You know, the economy's on the upswing. Well, I don't know. Wall Street's doing great, but I don't think Main Street feels it. So anyway, you didn't ask for that, but there you have it. Hey, by the way, before we go, don't you think Hillary Clinton's going to be the nominee?
Boy, I tell you what, every day I feel a little bit less sure about her. I think ultimately she'll be okay as far as getting through a Democrat primary. As much as I'd love to see her spend a lot of money in a primary trying to portray herself as something great.
Honest and transparent.
Yeah. Don't you think she's just got flies deluxe? Of course, she only has to win like 3 states to be president, right?
Pretty much, yeah. The Electoral College is down to New York, California, and maybe Oregon or something like that.
That's horrible.
Well, maybe they'll all smoke a lot of weed in Oregon and not go to the polls.
There you go. Yeah, if they got a good haze going the next day, maybe they or that day, maybe they won't go to the polls.
Wake and bake and not wake and vote.
There you go.
You shouldn't even know what that means, Mr. Parkhurst. That's a giveaway. That's a tell. Steve Parkhurst.
No.
Davis shouldn't know what that means. He
I
just
got it
throws
from
up
you.
on the spot.
I got it from Roxanne. Roxanne told me what wake and bake means. I've never knowingly smoked marijuana. Steve Parkhurst, thank you very much. We hope we can have you back again in spite of today's conversation. We really appreciate your insight.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I think he said, that's it, we're done. No more of that stuff out of left field. You know, if the Democrats, if the number of votes is pretty well set, because no matter who they run, they're either going to vote Republican or Democrat, then you're fighting over 3 states. I don't even know what 3 states they are. Texas is not in play, for example.
How do the Democrats have such great marketing skills? And Republicans, they really don't, to be frank.
In part because the Republicans have a civil war going on, to one degree. The Democrats have had their civil war. I mean, they have left and further left. They don't have many normal people who participate in party politics. They do have voters. They do have, like, so-called white working class voters, although white working class doesn't vote for Democrats. They're now increasingly voting for Republicans. You're listening to 710 KURV, The Drive Home.